Hey, welcome back to World Entertainment. You remember Borderlands, the movie? No? I'm not surprised, and I'm sure Lionsgate wish they could forget it. But it came out last year, the end of last year, and it was a colossal failure at the box office. And of course, the movie was made back in like 2020 or something, and COVID delayed it, and then strikes delayed it, and everything else. But it finally got released, and the audiences outright rejected it. This thing crashed hard at the box office, to the point that they just pulled it and dumped it on Amazon, and I think it's even crashing and burning on Amazon. And I recently watched it, only there a couple of months ago, and yeah, sweet Jesus, it's terrible. Like, there's nothing. Even, it's one of those films, even if you got drunk with your friends, you wouldn't enjoy it. It was horrible, with actors who looked like they couldn't have cared less to be there. Kate Blanchett slept walk her way through that movie. However, they are now coming out and giving their take on to why this movie failed, and of course the director Eli Roth is blaming COVID. That's right, we're in 2025, people, and the director of one of the worst performing movies of all time is blaming COVID that came out in 2020. So let's have a look at this, because it's just like, okay. So 2024 wasn't a great year for Lionsgate, but Borderlands stood out as the studio's biggest box office flop. Following a disastrous 9 million opening weekend, the movie ended its month-long run at the box office with a mere 33 million worldwide. Now, the interesting thing there is they say it ended its month-long run. I don't even think they left it in for the month. I think they pulled it within 3 weeks, if I remember correctly. But overall, 33 million worldwide is all it took. Get this though, with a production budget of 115 million, it wasn't, it was actually 120 million, and a 30 million marketing campaign, which saw fans of the game largely reject everything they were seeing, the studio lost upwards of 100 million and more, because again, this did get delayed by COVID, so it did sit on the shelf, which means it's racking up more costs. It doesn't sit there with the budget and the marketing budget and not watch the numbers raise up. It continues to raise because you've delayed it, which means the windows in the theaters that you've booked out and stuff, now you're having to re-up those contracts to get those windows back for when the cinemas reopened and stuff. So the costs continue to rise. They don't just stop. So anyway, Lionsgate CEO John Filterman, I think, previously said nearly everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It sat on the shelf for too long during the pandemic, and reshoots and rising interest rates took it outside the safety zone of our usual strict financial models. So right there, what you're hearing is him explaining, because it was sitting on the shelf, costs were still running upwards. It wasn't the case of, well, we've invested money in it, we can't release it yet, but that'll be fine because we just have to wait until the window opens and then we can No, the costs were still going up on this thing. So Borderlands director Eli Roth reflected on the movie while speaking to The Town, and argued that COVID-19 and Zoom meetings were the main issue. He also pointed to the reshoots he was unable to helm after moving on to Thanksgiving. Deadpool director Tim Miller reportedly stepped in to take charge of those, so he didn't even do the reshoots. Tim Miller came in and did the reshoots. By the way, if that's accurate and true, which I'm sure it is, man, does Tim Miller have a big problem when he steps into these type of projects. This is the guy who wanted big budget movies, and he seems to do nothing but disasters. So anyway, this is what Eli Roth said. I was doing Thanksgiving, and it's also the kind of thing where, like, wow, this is the first time I'm going to see a movie sort of being like, okay, I directed this, what happens? That was kind of an experience, like, never had that before. And I remember being Am I at a point in my career where I'm going to sit down to watch my own movies that says I wrote and directed it? And I really genuinely don't know what's going to happen, Eli Roth added. Isn't that interesting? He's literally saying, I'm about to watch a movie that I wrote, that I directed, and I have no idea what's about to be on the screen. That's just like mind-blowing. And he continued anyway. I think none of us anticipated how complicated things were going to be with COVID. Not just in terms of what we're shooting, but then you have to do pickup shots or reshoots, and you have 6 people that are all on different sets, and every one of those sets is getting shut down because the cities have opened up, and now there's a COVID outbreak. We couldn't prep in a room together. I couldn't be with my stunt people. I couldn't do pre-viz. Everyone's spread all over the place. You can't prep a movie on that scale over Zoom, and I think we all thought we could pull it off, and we got our asses handed to us a bit. A bit. So that's what he said about that. So it's saying these are all valid reasons, and it must have been challenging for Roth to hand the movie over to Miller and not know what was waiting for him in post-production. However, despite these issues, there were fundamental issues with the script that largely missed the point of the games it was adapting. So they, in this article, do call that out. They're like, okay, it's interesting, you directed it and wrote it and stuff, but you couldn't come back for these reshoots and stuff. Tim Miller stepped in, which then by the sounds of it, he changed some things. Because now Eli Roth doesn't know what's going to happen in the movie. Even though he may have not been able to be there for the pickup shots and stuff, but surely he was still involved with the editing of the movie. Either way, he's saying COVID, because we couldn't be together, and Zoom calls are the reason this movie flopped. While this article quite rightly points out, yeah, but your script was dog shit. Never mind COVID. The fact that your movie was written horribly, directed horribly, looked horrible, had actors who couldn't have cared less to be there. They were literally there for a paycheck. Cate Blanchett even admitted that. She was like, yeah, I literally did it because I just needed to get out of the house. That's the only reason I did it. And then, of course, the fact that she was, 53 or something doing the movie, and the character she's actually portraying is 23 in the movie, or in the games. And the same with Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, she's close to 70, and the character she was playing is, 32 or something like that. It's like, okay. The script was dog shit. The story they wrote was dog shit. The movie overall was dog shit, and nothing you can do will change that, including blaming COVID. You can't have the movie come out in the end of 2024 and go, everyone's hating it and saying it's a dog crap movie and blah blah blah. It's now 2025, what do we do? I know, let's blame COVID. Like, wow, that's the Bob Iger playbook. But there you go, folks. Eli Roth is out there blaming COVID and Zoom calls for the failure of Borderlands, and not a horrendously bad script, acting, story, visual effects, look, direction, writing, sound mixing, you name it. The movie is god awful. So with that, I shall leave it there for this one. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.